box.
Okay, so here we go. We get started. My name is Rick Allenberger, and I work at VMware. I am the systems engineer for the Americas for the Verizon Air products. We're going to talk about some of this desktop as a service stuff today. I'll do a little bit of introduction, and I'm going to talk about kind of the options for the product, both cloud and on-prem. I didn't put together an introduction slide for myself. I did want to reference, I'm here of my own volition. I do not represent VMware in any official capacity whatsoever. This is all my own dime. These are my words. This is my view. All right. Now, that said, you got to bring some tchotchkes to a show. So I am from California, and I figured, hey, we're in Hong Kong. What could be better for people in Hong Kong than a refrigerator magnet from California? So I'm going to pass these out. Pick off a magnet. There are different ones. You can trade them as you like. I rebuild old Volkswagens, so I put the Volkswagen on the top. All right, here you go. We'll start over here.
Very good.
I also found that we're going to have a real lunch. And we were in Macau the other day, so I stole some toothpicks. These are outstanding toothpicks. Take the toothpick. Pass those around.
Oh,
clean it out.
Very good.
You can't virtualize dental hygiene. All right?
Outstanding.
Outstanding. They're very good toothpicks. All right? This is the agenda that I'm going to go through here a little bit. Just a brief intro to the product. How many of you have heard of this Horizon Air stuff? You got a couple of you? Okay. So a brief introduction. We're going to talk about the blueprint for the product. How it works. So there's two sides to Horizon Air. There's the cloud business, and we use the term Horizon Air, and then there's the Daas business. The Daas business is when the product is installed into the vCloud Air network, where other people like Dell, Fujitsu, service providers provide desktop as a service. That's referred to as Daas, so you know the nomenclature. Horizon Air can also be installed on-prem. And Horizon Air and the technology that underpins Horizon Air is going to be a big part of Endzone. It's going to be a big part of the cloud-driven plane, and is going to change the provisioning technology. It's going to be a big part of Project Meteor, VM Fork, if you've heard those terms. And if I talk fast enough, I'll do some demo work. Okay? What Daas is today, the Horizon Air service, the combination of Horizon Air and Daas. Horizon Air runs on vCloud Air network data centers around the world today. We're in Frankfurt, Paris, Slough, UK, Sterling, Virginia, Dallas, Texas, Santa Clara, California. We're opening facilities here in the June-July timeframe in Australia and Japan. There's some consideration for Singapore through this year so that we can deliver these desktops as a service. We've got some other folks that are here on the bottom. Navijet, Fujitsu, Dell, as an example. Dell's a large reseller. They leverage the provisioning technology of Daas to provide their desktop as a service infrastructure. So through the vCloud Air network, the goal of all of this is that we create a federation. We like the term federation at VMware and EMC, so that we can work with partners to provision these services in a regionalized context for folks who need it. This is the marketing hype. This is the big vision pitch. So you've got your operating systems that exist today, you've got your applications that run today, and they run on the hypervisor that's in your private cloud. A capacity to move those workloads either to a Dell or a Fujitsu that leverages the service and the same underpinning of the hypervisor, or into the vCloud Air environment. So the goal is we want to take it north-south and then scale east-west to offer services that folks want to consume in the context of an OpEx and not a CapEx. That's a big impact on the financial income statement for the company, and that's a primary driver for this. Right? Getting the accountants to go for the technology is what implements the technology. It's what gets us all singing and dancing. Yeah? Now, a word about how we do it at VMware and where really the market, where this market is being generated in some context. At VMware, we meet with you and you want to buy some desktops. We sell them in 50-seat increments. The reason that we do this is that Microsoft, under the EULA, requires that all of the compute be segregated on a physical server environment. In the days of XenApp SPLA, Service Provider License Agreement, been around for many years. And a service provider, if I had 10 customers, I'd just buy one big piece of iron and run them all on there and everybody's happy. But Microsoft requires for the client-side operating system, Windows 7, 8, Windows 10, that the server compute is segregated. So we sell you 50 because we got to put a piece of server equipment underneath it. One of the items here is kind of tangential. Customers that are used to buying software at scale, they're used to levels of discount. They're really surprised that the level of discount here doesn't fit because the customer doesn't yet understand that we have to buy and implement that physical hardware. The cost structure is different. And this is a challenge for the organization. For a long time, we've had great margins. We sell software. Now the income statement references depreciation of asset, reduces margin, concerns stock price. So we're going through the machinations here. Okay.
50 seats each time, or to start it's 50?
50, we sell them in 50-seat increments. So you get 50 at a time. If,
Okay.
you, want,
Right.
if you want 70, you buy 100.
Yeah.
And we also sell terminal servers.
Sure.
And the way we're doing terminal servers is a little kind of nutball to me. I'm dialoguing internally as an example. We deliver a virtual machine with 20 vCPU and 30 gigs of RAM. And that does not compute to my experience, particularly at scale. So there's some challenge around getting VMware to implement the terminal service environment or to find the skill sets, the knowledge of that terminal service environment. It's part of the story. You buy a terminal service capacity, you get them in groups of 5. You get 5 terminal servers. Again, all those terminal servers run on individual compute resource. And you deliver individual apps or desktops through the PC or IP client. So you can consume those resources. Okay. Now what happens is you go out there in the world, you want to buy this desktop business. At VMware, what we do is, there's a 4-layer stack to this. I got the hardware, I got the hypervisor, I got the apps, I got the users. At VMware, we're going to handle the hardware, the hypervisor, and provide the framework for the provisioning capacity of the environment. And we're going to do that to an SLA of 3 nines. So from our perspective, if you can log on to an administrative console and provision a desktop, our work is done. Everything that is associated with that desktop is the work of the customer. So you create the gold pattern, you create all the settings that are required for the applications to run, you define all of the Active Directory context for the workload. That is your responsibility. If you call the help desk and say Outlook isn't working, no one's going to know what to do with you. This creates the secondary market. The Dells, the Navisites, the Fujitsus, they create a menu of service options that you can purchase, and you pay for these desktops over term. So you come in, hey, you want to do $1 million deal. You want to buy $1 million worth of desktops. Okay, you're going to give us a check, you're going to issue a PO, but you're not going to give me $1 million. You're going to break that up into 12 months, and you're going to give me that. Accountants love that. And you get an immediate desktop. You don't just spend $1 million in licensing and sign yourself up for a 15-month project. You get an immediate desktop. So there's lots of agility in the process. Okay? So what the Dells and the Navisites do is they say, okay, you want a desktop? We'll say antivirus. We'll do SharePoint hosting. We'll do Exchange. We'll give you 24-hour desktop. We'll give you management of the image. You can tick these things off. We're seeing large SIs, Unisys, the Accentures of the world. They're coming in and they're giving customers numbers at $15, $20 a desktop to handle all of the a la carte features for managing the workspace, because customers don't want anything to do with these desktops. They want, many of the customers just want an absolute service delivery. That's a bit of a challenge for us at VMware because we're not doing the service delivery, we're leaving that to the channel. Okay, so a little bit of an evolution on the story. Now, I'll start slowing down here a little bit and we'll talk about the technology itself. Horizon Air comes out of a purchase that VMware made of Desktone. You guys ever hear of that Desktone product? Yeah, okay, some folks did. Desktone was a company that lived in the marketplace for nearly 7 years prior to the purchase by VMware. And what Desktone is that it's a Linux-driven provisioning framework for these desktops. And for a service provider, like Dell, the Navisites, Fujitsu, vCan partners, that means that they get to remove all of that Microsoft requirement, both from an ongoing provisioning and management for the environment and from a cost perspective. I don't have to stand up SQL servers on a per-site basis. I don't have to put high availability into the SQL servers on a per-site basis. I don't have to move my provisioning framework through Patch Tuesday. So it's Linux-driven. The only patches that roll down to it are the patches that are released. So if we stand it up on Monday and it's delivering service on Tuesday, it's going to stay that way until somebody makes a change. And then that change is controlled, so we get predictive, consistent output. Yeah? Linux-driven, these are, when you install the product, you're going to have a management cluster and you're going to have a desktop cluster. Yeah? You're going to get an OVA file, and you're going to import the OVA file, power it on, get to the console. You're going to have a checklist the configuration items that you run through. You'll provide names, Active Directory context for the service provider, IP addresses, subnets, context for the OVA to install. This management item, these are the management components. These will all install into the management cluster. These are virtual appliances. I think they're on Bluetooth 12 in the latest version. These are 1 vCPU by 3 gig of RAM workloads. They install as highly available by default, so there will always be a pair. You can do some things in a lab context, particularly for the tenant appliances, to install them individually if you want to reduce resource and kind of work with it in this way.
When you say they are in a pair, does it mean that you pay for a pair as well?
Well, that's interesting. So the product is available on a perpetual license basis. So a customer can purchase the product. We sell it at a minimum of 500 seats for the initial purchase. Once you buy 500 seats, you can buy an increment of 100. The only installation of the product is a PSO engagement with VMware. It's $25,000 to install this product from VMware. It's a 9-day project and it's done completely over the wire. Nobody's on site. We give you a checklist, you're going to provide that checklist, and you're going to stand it up. When was the last time you saw a VDI implementation cost $25,000 and be done in 9 days? This is a story of agility. There's no site boundary for this because of the term that you're going to see reference as you get into this is multi-tenant provisioning. Multi-tenancy has a context in an individual data center, but it also has a geographic context. I can put my first data center in Chicago. I can light my second data center up in London, my third one in Paris, my fourth one in Singapore, my fifth one in Johannesburg. And all the policy construct that I've defined and the initial head end is now available for all. And I can provision workloads from an individual management console across the entirety of that environment as I see fit. And I can also provide administrative access to tenants. So I've got a business unit in Johannesburg and I want to stand up 200 desktops. I go into the administrative environment and I say, Johannesburg BU. I define it, give them a quota, 200 desktops. Who's the administrator that's going to make this gold pattern and do this work? John, you sign on. You can provision 200 desktops as you like. Go to town.
It's not going to work.
What's that?
It's not going to work.
Maybe.
They currently have load shedding, you know, so
What's that?
They have load shedding, so they don't have any power.
You're over my head with that.
You know, in South Africa, they got a electricity problem.
Oh.
Capacity.
Okay.
So
I get you. I don't get into the geopolitical humor. I'm sorry. Okay, so anywho.
Why am I supposed to get it in German?
So anyway, when we do the install, all right, you'll drop this OVA onto your management cluster and you'll kick it off, as I said. The first item to install is the service provider appliance. Again, it'll install in a high availability pair. We're going to recommend you have at least 3 physical servers in that cluster so you can support migration of the machines across the compute space. This service provider appliance, once it's installed, instantiates the Postgres database that runs that manages all of the administrative configuration for the space. It's an active-active pair, so there's a heartbeat between the two. The primary goes down, the secondary picks up. This service provider appliance registers all the communication that takes place within the framework, and I'll talk about that as we get into the next slide. The resource manager, this is a black box. That black box, the resource manager has a capacity to manage 20,000 VMs per resource manager instance. And it's a black box that essentially sends commands to vCenter to manage lifecycle of VMs. The tenant appliance is the head end that BU that I've described, or the customer, Acme Corporation, buys some desktops. The tenant appliance, and I'll reference this in a later slide with more detail. The tenant appliance puts the administrative interface in front of the user, and you recall I talked about that business unit that provides an opportunity for 200 desktops. So Bob logs on to that environment and says, make me 20 desktops. Because that tenant appliance is registered in the service provider, and Bob has an administrative role assigned for his multi-tenant business unit to provision, He'll issue the command to make 20 desktops. That command will move to the resource manager, issue the lifecycle management to the assigned virtual center. There's no conceptual limit on the number of virtual centers that a resource manager can engage. Okay? And it's all about registration. In a later slide, I'll talk some detail about how this communicates and coordinates together. Okay? And there's that slide right there. All right, so this is a conceptual run of the environment. And what this represents is, in the broad context, this is the management cluster. So what
This
happens
is
in...
all what runs in VMware DC, is it?
Yes, this is what we use to manage our Horizon Air product, but this is also what the vCAN or the vCloud network partners, the Dells, the Fujitsus, they leverage the same technology to provision their desktops. And you, as a customer, if you're a customer with a global IT infrastructure, you can purchase this product on a perpetual license basis.
Right.
And as you see evolution into cloud plane management and Endzone, these constructs, though they may change, concepts will persist in terms of how I manage lifecycle, both in my private cloud and in commoditized cloud.
But you have the licenses there, the product is yours, but you do pay every month for this, right?
For the vCAN, vCloud Network, Dell, Fujitsu,
Right.
in the context of the management framework, there's a quota that you assign to a company. Company Acme buys 200 desktops.
Right.
So you go to the quota, you put in the number 200, and then the vCloud Network partner will pay on a monthly basis on a point system to VMware to purchase the service. There's nothing in the technology that manages a billing in the context of moment to moment.
Right.
Mark, yep.
What happens if you stop using it for a couple of months? Are you still, if you go back, are you still okay?
Well, these services, as an example, I'll talk from the VMware perspective. We sell desktops based on term. They can be 1 month term, 12-month term, 24, 36.
Right.
You buy it, once you buy it, it's yours to do whatever you like with. You can log onto it and use it, and you just let it sit there and run. But it's just run. We don't bill you for the network. There's no data component that you're billed for. There's no CPU consumption that you're billed for. None of that. It's your desktop and your resource completely. Okay? There is, of course, many customers. There's a big dialogue around, hey, I don't want to pay by the month. I want to pay by the minute. I want to pay when I use it. So this is something that is roadmap for future
But
portion.
basically, can you have a break between using it?
A break?
I think
No.
you mean like use a month and
Yeah.
don't use for 3 months and
Yes, you can buy a desktop at a month. It's like leasing, right? So one of the things that I stress to the people I work with in VMware, this is like leasing. You're leasing an apartment. So one, we really need to be really clear in our desire to be a cost leader. Because if we're not, someone's going to take a break and they're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So we want them in, we want it to be cost effective. You can cancel your lease, just like you do on an apartment. So I bought the lease for 12 months. I want to cancel in the 9th month. Okay, you're going to pay a penalty because you're not completing the term, the contract, and then you're out. Now there's some things that I didn't include in the stack, but there's also a disaster recovery component for these services. And when we get there, I can expand on that a little bit too. But essentially with disaster recovery, you're purchasing a reservation to provision workloads.
Right.
So I can come in as a tenant, I buy 50, and then I want 1,000 desktops on reserve. And we'll have tiers of services provision. A little bit outside the scope of what I had planned today, but I can talk about that as we get in. I did want to demo some stuff. Okay? So what's the first thing that stands out here? Whenever I put this slide up, there's always a wingtip waiting to kick me out the door. Where's the wingtip? Anyone? It's very painful to be kicked out the door. Generally, it happens to me all the time with customers. I'm expecting someone's got a wingtip for me in here. Anyone?
Wingtip?
Yeah, wingtip. It's this thing. Hey, wait a minute. My tenant appliance is dual home. My service provider appliance is dual home. My resource manager is dual home.
All right.
This is the challenge, right? This is the security challenge that folks put there, right? So what's happening here, if you recall, I talked about the implementation of the product. I implement the service provider appliance first, and this creates the database component for administrative configuration is written. Everything that is appended thereafter, the resource manager is next, and then the tenant appliances follow. They are registered with the service provider appliance. This is a 169.2.4.254 network that's non-bridgeable, and the only communication that can traverse this backbone happens through the service provider appliance as these devices are registered within the framework. Okay? So what happens is, I'll have a VLAN construct, and you'll do all of this work in vCenter before you implement the product. This product does not write changes to vCenter. It takes its configurations from the underlying construct. So you're going to go in and you're going to set up a VLAN for your service provider network, where you're going to have your Active Directory environment, where you assign administrators and users on a role-based access to the environment. You will sign up a VLAN for each individual tenant, company Acme. That tenant appliance will exist on the VLAN. This is their IP scheme, and I'll talk a little bit about how that is extended. And what I thought I would do, like cloud, every time we said the word cloud, it would be a drinking game today, but it's a little early as yet. All right, but we'll talk about what I think about this cloud thing here in a later construct. So this tenant appliance, the customer will actually define the IP. This is an extension of the customer's private network. And with all of the segregated compute under multi-tenancy, this presents itself as a branch office or secondary data center. Right? So customers ask, how do I make this PCI compliant? How would you make a branch office or a secondary data center PCI compliant? For you folks that are local, PCI, do you know what PCI is? Say that again?
Let somebody answer it. Let somebody.
Oh, okay. You guys, PCI, I'm saying a term, I might not even know what it means. Do you guys, any idea?
What context?
Well, when you want to buy something with a credit card, or you want to deal with a banking construct and call somebody on the phone, what we want is we want a segregation so that somebody can't copy and paste a credit card number into something, or we can't commingle data. We want segregation. So there are standards, certifications for compliance that businesses apply and audit it, and then they become certified. So we often get this dialogue, and I'll go into this in a later slide about the cloud business. What it boils down to in the end is this is not cloud computing. This is data center computing. People, you got your whole career, some guy shows up in your office, starts talking about cloud, and it happened to me. I felt that I was asking some really dumbass questions. And then finally I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I know what this is. And that's the construct of the conversation that I have in the marketplace every day, empowering people to know and understand that everything you've invested in is exactly what is required. Okay? So the tenant, they'll define the IP network, and that's theirs out here. The tenant appliance will communicate across the back plane. Administrator Bob has the capacity to provision up to a quota of 200 desktops. He'll manage his images, he'll manage his lifecycle process for those images, and execute those commands into the resource manager, which will in turn send power on, clone, provision numbers to the assigned virtual center. And it'll go all the way down, as I said, company Acme, they've got so many desktops, they have so many individual servers, they're assigned to a specific resource manager in the construct of a specific vCenter. Okay? Now on the back end, this all runs on vCloud Air. So there's some things in there that can be conceived as challenges. We use the term shard in the context of vCloud Air. A shard is 48 physical servers, and that shard creates the construct of tenancy. So we can have up to 32 of these servers defined for a tenant, removing 2 for high availability, we can have up to 30. And where this leads to is that now we're going to start to have constructs around how many desktops can I put in 30? What happens when I go beyond 30? How many images do I have to manage across each container? How's that working? And at scale, this can be a bit of a challenge right now in terms of multiple image management and the broader deployments. Okay.
But this entire picture is on premises of VMware, right?
It is on-premise at VMware, on-premise at vCAN, Dell, Fujitsu, on-premise for the customer. Okay?
Alright, so it can also be an on-premise customer, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it can. You can purchase it at a perpetual license. We sell it at 500 seats for the initial purchase, and then 100 seat increments thereafter. When you buy the product as a service, I mentioned that previous slide, you get all the 24/7 access to support through GSS. Again, all that support is based on your capacity to log on, provision a desktop. That's it. No Outlook, nothing like that. Okay. Now the catch here, there's two things that catch on this slide. One is this backplane, this backbone. And then the other one is, yes, the compute is segregated. The storage is multi-tenant. It's segregated on individual one. It's segregated logically. We know exactly which disks are yours. And if the cops show up and they want the bad guy's disk, they're going to take the bad guy's disk and leave your disk behind. That's perfectly fine. Now, we've got reference architecture out from Nutanix on service providers that want to provide this resource and leverage Nutanix. But the challenge with the hyperconverged appliance is the metadata. So if I'm running multiple tenants on a single hyperconverged platform and the cops show up to take the bad guy's stuff, there's metadata across the space.
Yeah.
And that means all the stuff has to go. So what service providers are doing is that they're referencing cost points, and they're leveraging the opportunity with customers. Hey, we can put you on individual compute, we can elevate your security framework, give you specific assets that are dedicated, provided you're working at this level of scale. It's all managing the finance.
They just have their own clusters at that point.
Yes, sir.
right?
Yeah, that would be right. And then the context of the cluster, if I had 5 customers that were leveraging Nutanix in this way, I could have 5 vCenters in here, or I could strike up my vCenter, and then it would just be the machines that are appended to that specific storage.
Sure, so it's doable.
Yes, sir, it is doable. Okay. Any question on this one? Customers generally give me a hell of a time when they see this slide. All right?
Multi-tenancy is probably the biggest issue. Like, I mean, most discussion points are around multi-tenancy for service provider space.
Yeah, it's new, so, getting the
important to
terms,
understand.
yeah, it's new. So getting the customer, getting the conversation with IT to kind of come to ground with the terms and be comfortable with the constructs is the effort. But, and this is new. I mean, this is something, I was the first SE at VMware assigned to it. I've been working it for the last 15, 16 months. One success story that stood out, again, things are new. We took a customer, they had some corner case requirements. The IT administrative staff had never managed a virtual desktop. We turned the framework over to them, 2,600 desktops in 6 weeks delivered into production. That is, so our teams internally were kind of, they'd not worked together before in this way. They learned some things about themselves. They learned some things about the technology. I'm on a call. They're kind of heads down. I'm like, hey, everybody, look up. It's a sunny day. You just did something outstanding, and it's only going to get better. Let's stop this brutish bullshit behavior. So it's getting better. There's lots of agility. What I like about it, as I said before, you want $1 million in desktops? You're going to give me 1/12 of that for the first month payment. And you're going to get immediate access to desktops, not waiting around. So agility, OpEx is the value prop that drives the market. So a little bit of construct around the tenant appliance, a little extension of this. These tenant appliances head in the space. They have Postgres databases that collect all the administrative configuration applied to the tenant, all of the administrative activity that is executed across the tenant. There's a broker component. So what will happen is the service provider or the customer, they'll have a VRF context for routing so that we can segregate at layer 2 and 3 network communication within the environment. We currently are using a Linux appliance referred to as a DTRAM. VMware is coming to market with something they're calling an access point. They initially wanted to call it an access gateway. So almost discouraged them from doing that, and now it's an access point. So this access point will be a Linux appliance that will work in construct with the NSX Edge Gateway. Anybody following the NSX story? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, the NSX story is an intriguing story. Yeah, go ahead.
I would come to.
Yeah, you're going to cover it. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's an intriguing story. You might want to stick around for Sasha's section. So the customer will hit the FQDN of the broker. They will authenticate against, and there's options here. The customer can extend through a backhaul, a software-driven VPN, or an MPLS circuit to the defined data center. and they can extend their Active Directory, they manage the subnets that exist within the tenancy, and the user authenticates against their Active Directory. Now, what's interesting is that I'm encountering a number of customer conversations where they want the desktop services, but they want no connection to their private cloud whatsoever. I'm getting things like retailers that do investigative work globally, and they don't want the bad guys that they're tracking down on the internet to see IP addresses that point to their known location, so they want anonymity. This is one use case I'm encountering. Also, criminals aren't that smart. And these young criminals today, they're posting their crime on Facebook. So police departments want to trace down the criminals on Facebook, and I'm getting a lot of police department activity that wants segregation as an example. And what happens there is that there's a construct of a utility server. So you buy 50 desktops, and the sale of these desktops is based on amount of compute. Storage is fungible. So you buy a 1x2, 1 vCPU, 2 gig of RAM, a 2x4, or 4x8. You purchase the compute. You can take one of those compute buckets and stand up a domain controller in the tenant. You can stand up a file share server in the tenant. You can stand up a proxy server in the tenant. So you can imagine from our deployment platforms, our cloud-driven platform, we have an abundance of internet bandwidth that is available for these desktops. Oftentimes it exceeds what the customer has a capacity for on their private cloud. So you can leverage a utility server to segregate these environments. So back here, this Linux appliance, the tenant appliance, will broker, it'll allocate desktops to the user, which is entitlement work, manage the sessions, manage the inventory. All this stuff rolls into a Postgres database for maintenance, retention of data. There is a REST API that is available for the product, so customers can leverage that REST API to automate lifecycle for users and desktops, billing if they so chose. And we're releasing new product in the June timeframe of this year, and we'll update the REST API documentation to go forward. And again, all of this flows through. This is essentially just a black box. There's never any interface with the resource manager other than through the registered tenant appliance for lifecycle management of VMs. Okay. Any question?
This basically can be either VMware cloud or it can be the customer cloud.
Yes, sir. And the customer can be a Dell or Fujitsu. For example, Dell, and this is a referenced account, so I can talk about it. Dell sold desktop as a service because it's not on the VMware cloud. If it's on the VMware cloud, we call it a Horizon Air.
All right.
Dell sold desktop as a service to Technicolor, and they're in Germany. So Germany, the customer required, hey, the law in Germany says that this stuff that we do in Germany has to stay in Germany. Thank you, Edward Snowden. We're building data centers all over the world. It's crazy, right?
Great.
Yep, perfect. Love it. So all of that, Technicolor, delivered in Germany from the Dell desktop as a service offering, leveraging this technology. And then other customers, large global entities that have data centers around the planet and need to deliver, they want to do it once. As I mentioned earlier, I put the head end in first, and then each of the nodes that lights up in that hub and spoke has that policy construct, and I replicate the database elements from the service providers back to the core. So I've got one stroke for policy everywhere I go. And I'll show you in the demo component, I can manage tenants from a customer perspective. I can have desktops in Frankfurt, Paris, SLO, Virginia, California. I can have it all in one console and have it defined per business unit or per tenant. Okay? This is where the branch office, the secondary data center construct comes in. The physical compute is the customers and the customers alone. There's no commingling. Acme has their desktops on their physical asset, and that is the only desktop running on that asset. Their virtual filer, the technology was founded on NFS. NetApp was the first stroke to get this done. The technology itself, just kind of a step back, came about in the financial vertical in the United States because they wanted to deliver desktops and they wanted to deliver it as a service, and they wanted to meet the restrictions imposed by the Microsoft EULA. This is where it came from. Large banking institution in the United States put this together. And NetApp was the first run at a storage. So there's a logical construct here. This is where the tenancy element comes in oftentimes as a point of conversation with the customer, particularly in a security construct. Everything else is uniquely to the customers. The management database is on the tenant appliance. Virtual network, VRF front end, so that we can allow the customer to assign their IP addresses. Unlike vCloud Air, anybody in here work with or have any exposure to that vCloud Air business? No?
I will cover this.
Okay. vCloud Air allows the customer to define VLAN. We do not, on the Horizon Air side, allow the customer to define VLAN. So from our point of view, we're offering this desktop service. There's no access to the virtual center environment on the part of the customer. So anything that is related to infrastructure configuration, infrastructure reporting, anything that relates to the infrastructure is ours, not the customer's. So no VLAN context, right? There's no limit, there's no conceptual limit on the number of VLANs that can exist within the context of a tenant. For example, that 2,600 desktops, they wanted to provision desktops to IP address schemes, and that's possible as a policy construct. And then those IP address schemes have an underlying layer 2 construct for the VLAN. Okay? Well, that's not correct. We use this term, we use DTRAM today. See, the marketing guys? Yeah, pretty brilliant, huh? Sorry, this is going to turn into access point. Alex, you're going to talk about access point?
No.
Okay, well, what's happening with access point? Sasha, yes. What's happening with access point is that this is going to essentially become that gateway proxy component. We're going to do a little bit better job of port delivery. We're still going to rely on 4172 for UDP, 8443 for HTML5. And we're going to tunnel RDP through 443. So we're going to do for RDP what ICA did for 443 construct. Yes, so you'll open the view client, you'll say my desktop, I want it to be RDP, it'll come to me through a 443, and I get all the love and goodness of RDP.
Look at that. Remember the conversation we had last night?
Yes, see? There's love in the air. We're good people. Let's talk it out.
We need some music.
Oh, yeah.
Throw the Wu-Tang up, baby. All right, so here we go. And then finally, the directory services for the customer. And then this is the multi-tenant construct. Everybody has their own. There's no commingling from a resource perspective. Okay. This is an extension, again, of the branch office secondary data center. VPN. Now, I'm at odds with kind of what we present as a dialogue here from an official construct. We tell folks, hey, 500 desktops is the line for a software-driven VPN. I think that's a very nebulous statement to be made. Again, it's all about it depends, just what folks are doing. The more they're doing, the lower the number goes. Right? These desktops, this type of connection, task worker operation, green screen, AS400, doing CRM, light internet, 1, 2, 3 applications. Simple. More complexity, the number drops dramatically into this MPLS construct. So all the data center information is available. We refer to this as a direct connect from an MPLS perspective. You can stand it up for a 1 gig or a 10 gig bandwidth availability in the direct connect. And then again, this just becomes your branch office or secondary data center. Now earlier I referenced this idea of a utility server. And I talked about segregation. I don't want anything on my network. I want it to be completely separate Active Directory. When this is stood up, the customer is going to manage they're going to deliver licensing for this environment from their KMS server that sits on their private cloud. Again, the secondary branch office construct. They're going to be able to run their own QoS for the protocol through this MPLS construct. We do have customers that are co-locating network hardware into data centers, which I think is a very good idea because they get a lot more agility and they leverage their own skill sets by having these network head-ends and, hey, I want a Palo Alto. Hey, I want an F5. I want a NetScaler. Okay, great. Put it in there, stand it up, you put it right in the data center, and then it's a cross-connect between that environment to this compute environment, and they are managing it. Lots of agility from data center to data center work, replication, disaster recovery. It's a very smart play. Okay. The configuration for these network items, again, not dynamic from the perspective of vCloud Air. It's really important that the customer defines the network construct that they want to work with. So when we interface with them, we're gonna give them a deployment worksheet. What I reference with the customer is that this deployment worksheet is really very much a statement of work. And it's 2 pages long for the 1,000 VDI desktops that you're looking to provision. It's really important to understand that this is what these commoditized compute environments deliver. Reduced complexity from access and agility in terms of spinning things up. The data construct, hey, I can put a DFS server in the environment. I can replicate data over the MPLS and localize resources. Hey, wait a minute, I need to deliver some framework components for my applications. I need a database server. That goes on vCloud Air. And we interconnect vCloud Air into, think of them as 2 separate bubbles. Hey, I need encryption of data. Well, we don't encrypt data on the Horizon Air side. VDI is sensitive to disk I/O activity. So anything that's going to impact disk I/O activity from a process perspective or from an uptick of random I/O, that's going to go on vCloud Air. vCloud Air is partnered with HITrust as an example, so customers can put their file shares, localize it to the data center, encrypt it at rest, and hold the key themselves. Okay? And then you can also go further. vCloud Air is, there's lots of initiative around vCloud Air for disaster recovery and high availability. I'm sure, as Sasha will reference, the capacity to open the web client, drag and drop a machine from your private cloud to the public cloud, light the public cloud machine up. I want one element of my application framework here, my other one over here, and I just want to deliver it. Go ahead.
I cover it,
Yep.
but I'm not, I'm not working for VMware marketing team.
Fair enough. Well, tell it as you see it. That's what we're doing. So there's a construct around high availability and disaster recovery, and we're working to create. One of the challenges I have is that the guys at vCloud Air have no concept of desktops. They just don't have a clue. They're standing up all this workload, and I'm putting myself into their training sessions. And I'm like, guys, what about the desktops? So that's kind of where we're at the moment presently, and we're working to get these things meshed together, because what good is a desktop without data? And what good is a data without a desktop? And what is a desktop? Windows 7 is a client for Outlook, just like Windows 10 is. It's all applications. The operating system is an application. It's an operating system client. What is the real operating system? It's the hypervisor. That's the operating system. That's the data center operating system.
This is why Microsoft hates you.
Yeah, I know. Let's hug it out, man. We already talked about this. Come on. All right?
Well,
So,
so a user without a desktop too, you know?
An application. A desktop's an application. There you go. So again, this construct of, hey, what do I do about my data? What would you do with a branch office? Well, I put my data out there. Okay, you can. What if your branch office is in a bad neighborhood? I've got some risk out there. Well, you can keep your data back on prem. You can drag it over the wire like you've done before. It's the same decision set that you've always had. It's important that people get that. I get security documents from people, and what we're doing, and why I hate that they call it cloud, is that Salesforce.com, Hotmail, Gmail, that is cloud computing. You hit the enter button and you have no idea where those bits go. Not a clue. Here, if you do not construct the architectural framework to define where those bits go, they don't go anywhere. This is data center computing. It's not cloud computing. And I get these SaaS security documents around all this stuff, and it's like, it's nowhere at all applicable. And that's been a challenge too, because as we engage the market and people had their expectations that were so far out of line, there was a lot of no flying in the air for the first impression. And it took time to reset and kind of get this thing going. So it's been a bit of a back and forth. It's getting much better. I'm having much less security conversations today. I'm having more and more conversations around my financial managers demand that I do this. It's much different a year and a half later. Hey, futures. We call this the vision release. Okay? The vision release is before the beta release, or whatever the hell they call that. But the vision release is always very exciting because it creates an opportunity to kind of, have a conversation. Hug it out, if you will. So what is the vision release? This is what is going to be a big part of the conversation in the September timeframe as we get into VMworld. And this is the north and south traffic. North and south. When I say north and south, you know what I mean?
Private public?
Yes. So I want to move something from my private cloud up to the public cloud, north-south. I want to go north to the cloud, south back to me. So we want to be able to move stuff, but more importantly, we want to abstract it. Things like cloud volumes. I'm pulling the data, I'm pulling the applications out, I'm reducing the payload requirement of the movement of these workloads that I'll construct under a policy in an immediate way. Right? So this is the foundation of what is the vision release of Endzone. Right? And this is the cloud play deployment, and it's much more than Evo, because just as Andrew was saying, hey, the Citrix people said we can't talk to Nutanix. Well, about a year ago, the VMware people said, hey, you can't talk to Nutanix. Nutanix is out there pissing the world off, right? So now we're back in the game, because what we're going to do is, it's much more than Evo. We're going to facilitate the hyper-converged market. So we are going to work with Nutanix, we're going to work with Atlantis, we're going to work with Pivot 3. Those we're going to yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, it's all over the place what we're going to do. It's amazing. You know, you guys get like 5,000 employees, we'll talk.
I thought this was a monogamous relationship, man.
We're still hugging it out, bro. But anyway, it's much more than Evo. And the thing you keep in mind here for Evo, should you ever have the conversation, is that, thank you. Thank you.
He's a nerd.
I'm a sweaty man from the center of America. It's just the way it goes. But anywho, the provisioning. There's no thin provisioning component that is associated with Horizon Air. Everything is a full clone. So there's lots of focus on I/O performance in the storage substrate. You have to be forward thinking about the size of your image, because you can't just say, hey, I built 100 of these 30 gig images and now I want them all to be 60 gig images. No, it doesn't work like that. So you have to be a little bit thoughtful about the image in this construct. Evo Rail has no deduplication at this time. There's no dedupe. So the sales teams are getting out in front of customers, and EMC, well, let's just say, EMC is throwing Evo into all of these conversations, and everybody's gung-ho and fired up, and there I am saying to the sales teams, you're going to put this on site, and the big red marker that's going to come up is that with no deduplication, this stuff is wildly flipping expensive.
Yeah.
And now you just lost the account, right? So right now in version 1, it's not there. I expect it will be. And in the interim, we're going to, that stuff that we talked about Citrix getting that cloud thing in, our goal is to beat them. We are going to beat them. That is it. All right? That's the goal. It's a competitive game, and we're in it to win it. Yeah? Any questions? Oh no.
Who's winning?
We are winning. Make no mistake. We are winning. We truly are.
It was
Yeah.
Makes sense.
How was the guy Charlie Sheen?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
No.
Is it Charlie Sheen?
In my experience in the field, where VMware wins the game is around VDI. And the construct that I talk internally is that I think terminal service is dead. I think it's dead, and it should be dead. In my view, it doesn't fit with the Windows 10 everywhere construct and the ability to run multiple Windows 10 instances on a server. That's just my view.
Disagree.
That's what I believe. But anywho,
That's
we're
why
spending a
we-
lot of time to catch them,
Yeah.
and there's other things that need to happen. So I'm out there and I'm delivering, selling product for Citrix, and I'm working in some of the government spaces, and they're trying to stand up XanApp. They're falling all over themselves. Provisioning server, network construct. Got to get the multipathing down. Got to turn off the MTU. Got to do all this stuff. Make disk activity work over an IP network. Blah 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 blah. Weeks and weeks and weeks. Then one day the guy tells me, "Yeah, we run View." I'm like, "You guys run View?" He's like, "Oh yeah, not a problem. We're running 800 seats down in production." When I left Citrix in August of 2013, the largest VDI deployment in the Western United States, every day up and alive, 1,500 seats of Zen Desktop running Windows 7. It was running on Zen Server. They threw Zen Server out. They ran it on top of VMware. That government, to me, I talked about, is running 6,000 seats of VDI. And government entities in the United States, folks are not walking around with the sharpest tack, right? It needs to be simple. And that's where it comes in. Simplicity and predictability. It's VDI that we win on, and that's why I say, why are you chasing the thing that we're not winning? But that's just me espousing. All right. And then this is it, Endzone. Anybody know why we call it Endzone?
No.
Ferrari. Yeah. Enzo
Okay,
Ferrari.
is that without, did you have, like,
Oh,
ask
very
their
much.
permission?
What's that?
Did you have to ask their permission?
God, I hope somebody did.
you know he's dead, right?
What's that?
You know Enzo is dead.
Who's that?
Lamborghini killed it, Claudio?
Carl
Lamborghini
lives
killed
on-
it, man?
Yes,
You
that's
know Pulp Fiction? Who is that?
So this is marketing stuff, and we're nowhere near any of this business now in terms of scale of provisioning and speed and the rest. The thing to keep your eye on the provisioning story is VMware. And again, it's kind of in vision state, not been released to market as yet. I think that it's something that we are looking for in the Q4, Q1 timeframe of next year. Essentially, you're leveraging the VM kernel and a machine that is instantiated in RAM in the context of a cluster, and you're provisioning a workload in sub 100 milliseconds. So the capacity to immediately spin up machines. And to my earlier comment, hey, if I can spin up Windows 10 and a policy construct that is consistent and predictable and publish an application for it for mobility compute, aren't applications built for the client-side operating system? Why would I take another layer of complexity if I could work at that level of speed and have a very dynamic approach to consumption from a concurrency perspective?
So this figure, 3,000 desktops in 20 minutes,
Yeah.
it is related to what hardware or running where or establishing where?
It will be focused on what is referred to as VMware Project Meteor, provisioning technology slated for Q4, Q1, and it'll all be based on the VM kernel construct.
All right,
It's all
so
about the VM
the
kernel.
figure is not really yet.
Nope, this is the vision release.
All right.
This is the vision release. But VM is a huge strategic necessity for what we do with Horizon Hero. And it's lots of pressure for it, okay?
I'm finished?
All right. And I think that's about it. Am I done with time? No?
You were using all the time.
Okay, well then I'm done. I didn't know. I'm just talking.
Show
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
quick demo.
Good
I guess
demo.
I saw some data centers that I have my own servers in out there
Yeah.
as some of your partners. So let's say I want to get 500 VMs and I'm very happy that it's all there and I get my apps on. How do I know as you start to add more multi-tenant clients that I'm still getting the value the day I signed up to? If you've got any like storage, IO guarantees, or is there some kind of monitoring reports that you can get out of the system my apps for me as good as they were when I trialed the product?
Yeah, to go further into this, I think one of the best things to read is the service description, and the service description defines those boundaries that you've just asked about. So you'll have, the service description defines I/O, an advanced desktop, 50 to bursting to 4 times that amount from an I/O perspective that is under SLA for the desktop. Now the challenge, again, all of the hardware is segregated on a per customer basis. And the dialogue we have internally is that we don't provision that hardware beyond a 70% capacity, but that is not something that vCloud Air is allowing us to release to market as an SLA. So you're always going to have the hardware compute that is designated for yourself. The infrastructure logging and reporting that I talked about earlier is VMware only. You as the customer have the capacity to monitor every element of the desktop. You can collect all the event logs, you run all of the perf controls, you can run liquidware, you can run Lakeside, whatever you're doing to collect metrics from within the guest. But the underlying resource belongs to us. And the way that we face the market with it is, if that's a primary concern for you, then we need to talk about time to value and you need to deploy on-prem, and let's stop talking about cloud, we're busy. Right? Yeah, absolutely. All right.
How long is the demo?
I don't know, just log on to something real quick, I'll show you the management console.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had no idea.
Yeah, if you can just show the management console.
Oh,
Yeah.
Buy more time, dude.
What's
Put
that?
more money in the meter, man.
Oh, relax, everyone.
Wait,
Yeah,
I don't want to throw you off, but
No, calm down. Let's just see it very quick and then we
Yeah,
go straight into your
No,
section.
this is good. This is good.
okay. You mean that what I will do is not good.
That's okay.
Maybe you are right.
Totally short and his
Oh, no.
We
explanation.
can make it up, baby.
all right, so what I'll do here is, I'll do it this way. So this is the HTML5 business, which I absolutely love HTML5. It's so flippin' simple. By the way, I'm demonstrating borrow your own device today. This is not even my machine. I open a browser, and I can launch a desktop or get to my applications. And as an administrator, I don't have to manage software on devices that I don't own, and anything that anybody gets for Christmas can launch this desktop. This particular desktop is coming out of California, right? And yeah, it's, from a bandwidth perspective, not so hot. It's going to consume a little more than what you do from a PCORSP environment. I rebuild old Volkswagens. This is my '69 Roadster. Drive the shit out of that car. Yeah, not bad.
Reminds me of the time when I was very young.
No, I didn't get into it. You can still drive those cars, Benny. No, I didn't get into it, but this is the project. This is the Astro component. We won't deal with that one so much. This is the management interface that customers receive. Now, here's the deal. This management interface is available as a read-only option within a POC desktop. If you guys want a POC desktop, all I need is your name and your email address. I'll gladly provision you one. They're persistent desktops. You can install your own applications. You can put a VPN client on it. I use a VPN client. I've got mine. And I keep it on and access my cloud and just work with it as I have to. So this is very simple. This is going to change in the June timeframe with Astro. Right? So simple dashboard. You can download a user activity log. This is where the REST API components come in.
So you finally fixed the console.
Well, what I like about the console is it's simple, right? It's just dirt simple. I come in, I want to put in Active Directory, I assign it. It doesn't matter about the truss or anything on the back end. I put in the domains as I like. I can have a resource domain, I can have a user domain.
But this is a ready environment already, is it?
Yes, this is. This is an environment that's up to date.
But the ones where you create the entire thing, where's that console?
So when you're creating stuff, I come in and I can create a pool. Well, let me start with the pattern. So what happens is start with a pattern. Again, because it's in your private cloud, hey, you can put your SCCM agent in it, you can put your Altiero Sage on it, you can soft provision the workload. If you're in a production environment, you can import a workload. These are the images that have been built. Once I have the image, I come in and now I'm going to create a pool. So in creating the pool, I define whether I want individual desktops or I want RDSH servers. I select the data center, California, Virginia. I can be global in this construct. What we're doing is we're using edge gateways to pin up VPNs between the data centers for the customer. They can have individualized circuits, all right? And then it's just simple. I select the pattern.
But all of the content, all of the gold images, that's something what you create yourself, right?
The customer creates that, yes.
Right.
Yep. I select the protocols that I want. And then over here, you can see the 67 remaining. There's a quota for the tenant. Remember, Bob had access to 200 machines. He's got 67 remaining. I can drop 5 in here, right, whatever. There's a policy construct. Once I create a pool, the construct persists. I can customize the pool in that I can create desktops that are in OUs, out of OUs, in the domain, not in the domain. And one of the things that they are, of course, taking away from us is that right now in the current product, you can publish an application delivered on RDP only that comes from your desktop. What I want to see us do and what I advocate for is that I want the user to have a persistent desktop. I want you to install your own app and publish it yourself. Why are you talking to me? That's what I want.
That's what the user
That's what I
wants
want.
as well.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
You don't want that in enterprise environment.
But anywho, well, it's all a policy construct. It's all a policy construct. We're very, these are the CPU and settings. Again, these are SKUs. All of this is defined in advance. What really matters in here is the reset. Video graphics, NVIDIA, not until 2016 will this be the case. And, oh, where's it at? This is an RDP construct.
But when you say NVIDIA graphics, that means that it only applies to your own data centers. You're not planning to have it in the VMware data centers.
This is where the vCloud Air network partners come in, and Navisite, for example, does deliver 3D desktops. You can purchase them. Of course, the caveat, you need to be aware of bandwidth and all this other business. You notice that we're very granular on the session timeout. One thing that I will show, and I discovered this, is this tool from Teradici. Love this tool. And I include it on my desktops. I encourage customers to download it because it works in a very automated way. Now I'm using HTML5, but I was doing some testing the other day, just banging around on things, running my desktop out of California here to Hong Kong. And you can see I've got immediate access to these metrics. So I was looking at latency. I was coming in at about 100, and 170, 180, and 170. I got good performance out of the environment, and then from a bandwidth perspective, what I did was I was running the GoPro video just off the site. I was getting bandwidth up in this range, 75, 80 kilobits. A little bit more to do for broader construct here, but I love this Teradici tool. If you're going to play around with the PC over IP client anyway, great tool, supported, give you good access to metrics.
You guys still partners with Teradici? Yeah.
Yes, we are. We, well, Benny's probably going to know the construct better than I am, but we have the PC over IP product, and we've put intellectual property around it, like the USB constructs, the remote drive mapping, which coming in the June 10 timeframe, you'll be able to remote drive the IPC work from a terminal server perspective. These sorts of things come out in June. That's additional to us. You know, AWS uses PC over IP for their delivery of terminal service environments today. Okay. All right, with that, I'm consumed far too much time.
Even GPU accelerator?
Still have
Yeah.
power on the
Oh,
laptop?
from a GPU perspective, we support soft 3D. We don't do the NVIDIA stuff on our work, but that would be back to me to say. Okay? All right, I'm out of here. I'm sorry. I'm over. Okay?
So not be sorry.
Okay.
Sasha, go ahead.
Okay.